Hi, my name is Veerbeek. I work for the Department of Coastal and Urban Risk and Resilience at IHE Delft, the Institute for Water Education. And I want to introduce to you the concept of water-sensitive cities that by many is seen as the future of cities. To do that, it might be interesting to look at how we thought in the past the future of cities would be. You can see that, for instance, here, where we see massive infrastructure, futuristic housing concepts, and in the 1960s and 70s we thought the future would look like this. And in some cases that might be the truth. For many, especially if we go to Asia, the future of cities is embodied in the city of Singapore. And here you see the Bay Area with its futuristic domes and vast green spaces that populate the city. Yet, current cities might also look like this. Here we are in Mumbai, along the Mithi River, where we see an informal settlement, a shanty town, and where many of the water problems come together. Deteriorated water quality and poor living conditions for many of the residents that get flooded on a yearly basis. If we look at cities and urbanization, we see on the right side of this slide an example of a very extreme condition. We are in Guangzhou, China, in one of the so-called urban villages where the density of urbanization is enormous. This creates an enormous impact on the urban water system. The area faces flooding problems due to the fact that there's basically no space for the water to be captured or stored. The water consumption is very high because we concentrate a lot of people on a very small place. The water quality has deteriorated. We create a lot of wastewater. In many areas in this neighborhood there are workshops with polluting activities. So water quality has deteriorated. Groundwater levels have gone down because we abstract a lot of water from the ground to service these areas. Because there's a lot of paved areas, the urban heat island effect is very apparent here. Areas heat up, although you might say there's a lot of shadows in the tiny alleys in this area. Rainfall patterns are changing because of the urban heat island effect, and urbanization in some areas, not in this one, also causes susceptibility to forest fires. So the impact of rapid and massive urbanization in the way we used to do it is enormous. When we talk about water-sensitive cities, we immediately introduce the concept of water-sensitive urban design. And water-sensitive urban design basically means restoring the normal, the more natural water balance in the city. To do that, it is important to understand a little bit about the urban water system. If we are in a natural area, we have basically precipitation, rainfall, snowfall, whatever else might fall out of the sky. Much of that water is evaporated through our vegetations and sun. A lot of that water is also infiltrated into the ground, recharging aquifers. And a small portion of that rainfall is as runoff being conveyed to other areas. When we are building cities, we have drastically altered this water system. With the same amount of precipitation, because of all our soil sealing, we have created a lot of paved areas, we have large volumes of poor quality runoff. Because of the soil sealing, there's little infiltration into the ground. Yet we need a lot of water, so we have to import a lot of potable water and so-called virtual water, water embedded in products, as well as that we create a lot of wastewater that we need to somehow get out of the area and discharge. Now, the concept of water-sensitive cities is the best of both worlds. We try to introduce some of that natural water system back into the cities by introducing more vegetated areas in the cities, therefore increasing the infiltration, treating and reusing some of our stormwater runoff, and therefore closing a local water cycle and decreasing the amount of runoff, creating more evapotranspiration by our vegetation again, and importing less potable water and virtual water by, again, reusing some of our wastewater. Now that might sound exotic as a concept, but it is already done. Here are some of the examples you might see in some of the cities in Europe, in the US, in Australia, but also in Asia and increasingly also in Africa. Typically we try to capture, store, infiltrate, delay, accommodate and reuse our stormwater, our rainfall if you will, by creating local basins, sometimes bioswales, urban wetlands and large vegetated areas that capture and infiltrate some of our stormwater. We try to do rainwater harvesting by creating these big planters and capturing some of the rainwater that falls on our roofs. We try to vegetate riverbanks, create multifunctional dikes, try to protect our homes against the impacts of flooding and create water squares where we combine typical urban functions like recreation, for instance playing sports, with a water function. All in all, what is important to remember, all these functions are combinations on the surface of a water function and an additional urban function. If we look at the evolution to water-sensitive cities, we can clearly see a drive towards, by providing different water services, driven by social needs. In its most rudimentary form, we all need water supply. Without water, we die. So we could say water supply is the most basic step in the evolution towards water-sensitive cities. Then we are requiring a better hygiene, and therefore we need the sewage city by also treating wastewater. Then we start to look at flood protection. We evolve towards the drain city. In the waterway city, we start to look at amenities that our water system can provide. In the water cycle city, finally, we move towards treating pollution, point source solution and other types of solution, and increasing the water quality of our urban water system. And when we move finally to the water-sensitive city, we also look at climate adaptation, creating multifunctional stormwater management systems in our city. And you could say that the merging of water and urban design in our cities is complete. So in short, water-sensitive cities combine the best of both worlds. They combine the ecosystem and water functions of a city with everything that happens above ground, creating multifunctional cities where water claims its space in the city and is no longer something that we hide underground. So hopefully you can also contribute to building the cities of the future, water-sensitive cities.